Hi and welcome to the Cloaked Hedgehog's YouTube channel. Today I'm going to continue to talk about some of the encounters on the Dogman Sightings map, and today we're going to hear a few stories out of Texas. This is an old story, a legend. It comes from texascryptidhunter.blogspot.com, and it's about the Converse werewolf. Converse, Texas, is not the kind of place one would normally associate with a monster sighting. The town, while small, it encompasses only 6.3 square miles, is now densely populated and heavily developed. Sitting only 15 miles to the northeast of downtown San Antonio, it has become hard to discern where Converse ends and the Alamo City begins. It is known for many things these days: great Mexican food, the Judson High School Rockets football team, and Randolph Air Force Base, to name a few. Converse, however, was not always so developed and civilized. It was once not much more than arid plains, rocks, cactus, and the chaparral scrubland. Such lonesome country often holds secrets. The area that was to become Converse is no exception. It is said that back in the mid-late 1800s, a rancher moved into a plot of land near what is now Converse. The man was a rugged sort who had grown up in true pioneer fashion. Some versions of the tale suggest that he was a military combat veteran who moved to the area in an effort to put the horrors of the Civil War behind him and live out his days quietly on the South Texas plains. This man had a son who was something of a disappointment to him. The lad was frail, bookish, and preferred studying to wrangling and hunting. This frustrated the old rancher to no end, and he decided to make a man out of the boy. To this end, the rancher decided to send his son out hunting. He hoped that the boy would take a liking to the sport, and after making his first kill, would prefer the more manly activity of hunting to that of reading and studying all day. The old man put a long gun in the boy's hand and instructed him to go out and shoot a deer. The family needed meat, after all. He directed the boy to hunt a heavily wooded area along a creek called Skull Crossing. The boy was reluctant at first and resisted, but one way or another was finally coerced into going. The old rancher watched with high hopes as his son walked away from the homestead toward the woods. The old man would soon be disappointed, however, as his son returned a few hours later empty-handed. When chastised for returning without any game, the boy told his father that he had left the area out of fear, as he had spotted and been stalked by a monster resembling a werewolf. The father immediately dismissed this wild story and cajoled his son into returning to the area to finish his hunt. The boy didn't want to go, but his father left him no choice. Trembling and fearful, the boy trudged back out to the ominously named area of Skull Crossing. Little did the old rancher know that it would be the last time he would see his son alive. Hours passed and darkness began to fall. The old man, the story goes, began to worry and have second thoughts about sending his inexperienced son into the woods alone. While he hoped the reason the boy had not returned was because he had yet to make a kill, he began to have a sinking feeling deep in his gut that something was wrong. Deciding not to wait any longer, the rancher rounded up some neighbors and they made their way toward the wooded area near Skull Crossing in search of the boy. What they found upon arriving there is the stuff of nightmares. The search party happened upon a monstrous hirsute creature hunched over the body of the rancher's son. The beast was in the act of ravenously devouring the boy when discovered. The men got off a few shots at the monster, but it bounded away at lightning speed. The werewolf, as it was dubbed, was described as standing between 8 to 9 feet tall and covered in dark hair or fur. Members of the search party described it as being some kind of unholy combination between a wolf and a man. The old rancher was, understandably, devastated by the death of his boy. He blamed himself for not believing his son's story, and believed he sent him to his doom by forcing him to return to Skull Crossing to complete his hunt. The versions of the tale I've heard say that the rancher died shortly thereafter. Some versions say he became reclusive, refused to eat, and wasted away. Others say he committed suicide by setting fire to his own home and burning up. Did this event actually occur? You won't find any old newspaper accounts documenting the incident. I've looked and came up empty. Somehow, though, the tale has lived on for more than a century. Should the story be dismissed as an old campfire story, a myth? There are similar stories involving werewolves and other hair-covered monsters that live on in the folklore of the region. The story of the wild woman of the Nevadad, Bear King of Marble Falls, the legend behind Woman's Hollering Creek, the hairy man of Round Rock, and the mysterious limestone carving dubbed the Cleo Face, all allude to old tales of beasts of similar appearance. This story comes from paranormal@about.com. I was just out driving one night because I was bored and wanted to get out. First, I want to say that I don't drink at all or do any kinds of drugs. Usually when I'm driving, I see many animals: deer, rabbits, raccoons, opossums, skunks, and more. But this night I didn't see any animals out. This was very unusual. I was about 2.5 miles outside of Cross Plains, Texas, when suddenly there was a large animal in the middle of the road, eating a raccoon that had been hit by a car. I first saw a sparkle from the animal's eyes as my headlights shined off the road. I always watch for shining eyes because I know many animals are out at night. I slowed down and stopped about 30 feet from the animal, which at first looked like a large dark gray dog eating on a dead animal. It was standing on all 4 feet and started off to the left side of the road, but only moved a few feet when it turned and went back to its meal. The dog then picked up the coon in its mouth and headed off the road to the right. As I watched the dog-like animal walking off the road, the animal then raised up on its hind legs as it walked towards the fence along the road. When it got to the fence, the animal jumped over it while still carrying the coon. I know most animals, and I know that a full-size coon can easily weigh 30 pounds or more. This animal walked on its hind legs and jumped over a fence that was about 5 feet high and didn't even touch the fence. The animal then crouched behind some weeds and small brush. I had gotten out of my car with a flashlight to see more because I didn't know what I was seeing. I don't know of any animal like that, and I have lived in rural Texas areas all my life. When I shone my light on the animal, the reflection of light on the animal's eyes was red. They didn't glow red like others describe in their stories. It was like when you take a picture of someone and they have a red glow from the flash. I know most animals' eyes reflect kind of blue or white sparkle when light is shown on them. Anyway, while I was shining the light on the animal, it started a very loud, deep growl, and then a loud hissing noise. At that point, I got back in my car. I wasn't staying any longer without a gun, and I didn't have a gun with me. So I then drove off. I watched the animal for about a period of 8 to 10 minutes before I left. The animal had no tail and did not have spikes along its back. This is a kind of funny and incredibly scary story from a blog called My Editor Resigned at reformedvagabond.blogspot.com. It's a long story about 2 young men who had just graduated high school and wanted to take a road trip. So they went to New Orleans and Shreveport, and finally they get to Marshall, Texas. And this is where I'll start reading from. This road was kind of like Christmasville Road. The locals reading this would know what I mean, and non-locals would have to use their imagination. It was dark, winding, full of hills that ended in curves. There were beating, glowing eyes on both sides of the road. You could hear the crickets and the bullfrogs over the sound of the wind rushing by that old Sentra. It was peaceful and creepy at the same time. The humidity was a real thing, tangible. The air was thick. It smelled like pastures, hay, and swamp. We drove for what seemed like hours. It was after midnight, and I saw a sign that informed me that Bivens was the next town of any size. I was hypnotized by the yellow lines in the road. We hadn't seen another car in at least an hour. Sleepy, I rolled the window down and lit a cigarette. There was music coming from the radio, the tape player. It was either Tupac or Bob Seger. I smoked my cigarette, absent-mindedly flicking ashes out of the window. I took one last puff and flicked the still-burning Camel short off into the woods. Then I saw it. I never looked to my right. I didn't even kind of peek to the right. Maybe I did a little when I flicked the cigarette away. I don't know. What I do know is that in my periphery there was something running alongside the car. It was just behind my window, and before where the back window begins. I looked over at the speedometer, 40 miles per hour. I looked at my friend. He was looking straight ahead. I looked straight ahead. I could still see it. I could see one huge arm, matted hair, reddish-brown, sticky-looking, primal. I eased my right hand over and rolled up my window. My friend was still looking straight ahead. His jaw was clenched, and he put both hands on the wheel. He sped up. No words were said. I looked straight ahead, and still out of my periphery, I could see that arm moving, muscles and tendons visibly rippling beneath that matted hair. As the car gained a little speed, the thing running alongside us lost pace slightly. I then saw the hand on the end of that nightmarish arm. The hand was clenched into a fist the size of a cantaloupe, a big cantaloupe. It was covered in the same hair, but slightly darker around the fingers, like it was stained with something. Suddenly the hand unclenched, and then I saw the claws. Black as this damned after-midnight Texas night. Those claws were at least 2 inches long, sharp, like an animal's. This wasn't a hand so much as it was the killing paw and claws of some beast whose only purpose was to kill and eat. I looked back at my friend. I looked at the speedometer, 50 miles per hour. I lit another cigarette, didn't roll down the window, simply said, shit. The music had stopped. I finally broke the silence and said, hey, do you... And before I could finish, my body said, I see it. I've been seeing it. I can't even see you, but I can see whatever the hell that shit is. How much do you see? More than I want to. Speed up, John. Just speed up. It can't keep up forever. I looked over, 55 miles per hour. Whatever was chasing us, silently, was starting to lag behind. I finally looked to my right, just a bit. Imagine the scary part of the movie where you put your hands in front of your face but still peek through. In 37 years, I have 2 regrets. One is picking up that first cigarette, and the other is me looking at my right that night. This beast was huge. Its chest was above the top of the car, and all I could see was that matted, reddish-brown hair. Then it bent forward as it ran. I saw the face of this thing. All reality stopped. We were no longer driving down some country road in Texas. We were now trying to escape from the depths of a monster-inhabited hell. This thing's face is beyond my powers to describe. It was evil. The eyes were black and the pupils were red. It flashed its teeth at me in a snarl, yellow and huge. Saliva dripped from its mouth. It opened its eyes wide and it looked hungry and pissed off. Then it opened its mouth. The skin pulled back until all you could see were the black gums and yellow teeth. Immediately I could feel the car accelerate. Fucking hell, John, just go. I prayed, I cursed, I lit a cigarette. Then, like sunshine breaking through the clouds, the road straightened out. Don't you slow down. We drove through Bivens and we drove to Texarkana. Then we drove home. We never said a word. It was years later, 11 to be exact, before we even talked about it again, and we didn't talk about it much. He said he'd never told anyone, and I hadn't either. I told the story a few years back for the first time, while I was parked out on a gravel road, doing things you do when you're parked out on a gravel road with a good-looking woman. I told it a year or so ago to a couple of kids who wanted to hear a scary story while they sat around a campfire. They didn't sleep for a day or two, but they asked me a dozen more times to tell them the story. I never told anyone until now that I saw its face. I've been scared for my life exactly 2 times. Once was on that road, and once was looking at a grizzly bear in front of me with a terminal velocity-inducing drop to the side of me. Call it whatever you will, call it bullshit if you want, but look me in the eye and let me tell you this story and you'll know. Never doubt that there are things in this world that defy explanation and logic. The boogeyman is real. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future videos. Be safe and I'll see you next time.